A spider on top of the snow. Is that a brown recluse? Are you alive? Oh, he's alive.
I've been watching a survival show lately, and it's kind of got me to thinking, what essential things do I need to survive? Like, if I really had to pare it down to just a couple things, what would that be? So, let's go indoors and have a little discussion about this.
I started camping when I was very young, but I spent a lot of time outside pretty much my entire life. I tell people that I was raised by the river. I grew up not too far from the Saline River in northwest Kansas, and I pretty much lived either on the banks or literally in the river every spare moment I had. I remember as a very young age, I was probably about 4, sitting at the edge of the river while my dad was running the silage tractor and watching the carp swim upstream. I started going out on my own long day excursions when I was 10, and I didn't actually start spending the night until I was 12. A good friend of mine and I would go out, and when we first started camping, it was literally survival. The first time we went out, we took a hatchet, some matches, and I think a can of pears, and that was it. And we had a pretty rough time of it, actually. You know, we had no adult supervision. We had no clue what we were doing. We just went out there and spent the night on the river. And it wasn't during the summer either, because during the summer, I spent my life on the tractor, pulling a plow around and around in circles, so I never got to go camping in the summer until I was out of high school. Turns out I don't like it. I'd much rather camp in the winter when there's no bugs. But I think I learned something very quick on that, is that you can actually survive with very little things if you have knowledge. But there are some things that are just going to make your life so much better, right? You got to have some technology to make your life better, right? When I first started going out, I actually had a very small hatchet. It was smaller than this one, actually. This is a great hatchet. I like it. It's just a little small. It's great for when you need to throw it in a bag or something like that. My favorite one is this borderline axe here. This thing is huge. I absolutely love this. This right here would probably be my go-to survival tool. Like, if I could only have one thing when I was traveling or heading in the woods or whatever, it would be this right here. I love this thing. This thing is actually far better than this axe right here. It's lighter and it cuts faster. And I mean, the handle is, 6 inches shorter or something is it? But I love this thing. I have had this thing for years and years and years now, and that would be my #1 first pick survival tool. I think if I were going for a survival situation and I didn't have this tool, I think I would actually take an axe, a real full-sized axe, over a hatchet any day. You know what I'm saying? Oh yeah, I threw this one out here because I've had this one for, I don't know, 25 years or something like that now. I really like it too, but the head on this one is so heavy. It's really, really heavy, and I don't like the shape of it, the way it's just comes straight back. Like on this hatchet, it's very thin before it comes back. It's much nicer. But this wooden-handled hatchet here is literally heavier than this big old long thing. Believe it or not, just because that head is so big. But if I had my choice, I would actually prefer to take a folding saw over a hatchet. But there is one condition with taking a folding saw, and that is I have to be able to take a knife with it. It needs to be paired with a good knife. But we'll talk about knives later. First, let's talk about folding saws. I really, really like this Coghlan saw. Someday I want to get me a nice silky saw and see how much of a difference it is. But a good folding saw is just absolutely amazing. You can cut wood so much faster with a folding saw than you can with an axe. And this one will go through some really, really big logs. To this spring, I cut down a tree next to my house. It's a pretty good sized hackberry tree, growing, in the fence line where it shouldn't. And I think the stump on that thing was about that big around. It was bigger than the blade. And I actually started off using the bow saw, and the bow saw bound up, and I switched to this thing, and this thing cut through easier than the bow saw. So I prefer these folding saws over a bow saw any day. These things are just amazing. But get a good one. Back when I was in junior high and high school, I carried this Coghlan's brand. A local store started carrying this brand again, so I bought one, and they are still very, very good. Very happy with them. They're pretty cheap. They're about $12. So definitely worth getting. Do not get these guys. Oh my word. This saw is just worthless. It's not even sharp. It's just like stamped out, supposedly looking like teeth. And the blades are terrible, and that's a horrible saw. Don't even get that. But I would pick the folding saw if I could take a good knife with me. The reason I would say that I want these together is you can't really process an animal with a folding saw. I've never actually tried it, I guess, but you know, you want a good knife for processing an animal. As far as that goes, it would be nice to have a good, you know, skinning knife. This gut hook back here is just really, really nice to have when you're processing an animal. So, if I could take a good knife and a folding saw, if I could take two instead of one, I would take this over just having my hatchet. I really prefer this pair. And this is a lot lighter than this. And you're going to save yourself a lot of energy processing wood, and, you know, but if you got one, this will do everything that these two will do, right? Following me? Okay. That's kind of my first thing, I guess, is some way to deal with chopping up wood, right? And being able to process an animal. Some tool to do that. Second is fire starting. I would prefer to have a hatchet over a fire starter any day. Because if you have the ability to make fire, but you don't have any way to get wood, what good does it do you? You know what I'm saying? My first choice is a magnesium block. Again, I really like the Coghlan's brand. Most of them come with a broke-off hacksaw blade, so you can use it to shave and spark. Really like taking that with it. But, you know, if you don't have the little hacksaw blade, your folding saw will do this job just as good. And of course, you know, if you don't have your folding saw, your hatchet will work just as good too, right? Used up there on that side of the blade. So, yeah. So I love these mag blocks. That would be my first choice in starting a fire, is always a mag block. But I really, really like ferro rods too. Can't go wrong with a ferro rod. You know, this knife here has the ferro rod magnesium block combination thing. I really, really like that. As you can see, I've used it a couple times now. Really, really, really handy to have both in just a little cylinder like that. When I first started going out, I just took a book of matches with me. Matter of fact, we took gopher matches. You know, the paper. This is what I actually took when I first started camping. So, yeah, those I highly recommend. Of course, in here I got the paper ones and the regular, you know, strike anywhere matches. I got a ferro rod with its own striker in here. And I got a lighter. So I've got all that inside my cooking pot. And of course, the cooking pot is my third most essential item to have. You can get by without a cooking pot, especially if you can process an animal, you know, or get lucky and find yourself a rock. You can get around not having a cooking pot. It's much easier if you have one. This kit I've had for so many years, I've forgotten when I bought it, and I've forgotten where I got it, actually. But this is a Peak One Coleman. Before Coleman went overseas, back when Coleman was made in Wichita, Kansas. And of course, you know, once you get past this point, you know, of having some way to process wood, some way to process an animal, some way to start a fire, and something to boil your water in if you need to, well, then it just becomes, what do you need more? And you end up with a huge backpack of stuff, right? So, anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little discussion. Oh, I would absolutely never take a machete. Never. I hate machetes. I've had a couple over the years. Matter of fact, when I started camping, one of the trips very early on, we took a machete and a hatchet, and we quickly realized that you can't do much with a machete at all unless you just absolutely want to wear yourself out. They're horrible for chopping up firewood. Absolutely horrible. So no machetes. And give me your thoughts in the comments. Which items would you really consider essential to start off with?